President Biden visits Michigan after being endorsed by the United Auto Workers. Can he move the Michigan needle with polls showing him in trouble? We'll talk with UAW President Shawn Fain. Meanwhile, is President Biden losing the Arab American vote in Michigan? Today is Sunday, February 4th, 2024, and this is Flashpoint. Hi, welcome to Flashpoint. I'm glad you're with us today. Ahead this morning, we're going to talk with the man who many would characterize now as the most prominent labor leader in the country. The UAW's fight against the Big Three put Shawn Fain in the nightly headlines, and so, of course, did the record contracts he negotiated. Well, last week, he bestowed the union's political blessing on President Biden, who arrived in Michigan this past week to shake on it. Many have wondered when the Biden campaign machine would start to hum. This visit didn't quite check that box. Pretty much everything about the visit was sort of off the public radar. But ahead this morning, we're going to talk with Shawn Fain, not only about politics and Donald Trump calling him a weapon of mass destruction for auto workers, but we'll also take a look at what that record contract looks like now with a little space in the rearview mirror. Also, in coming to Michigan, the president was visiting the state with its large Arab American community, and as he was visiting, a group of Arab American activists was announcing their intent to abandon President Biden over his policies in Israel. What does that mean to President Biden's chances of hanging on to this oh-so-critical state? It's all today on Flashpoint. On Thursday, President Biden was in the Detroit area. In a way, it felt like a formal acceptance of the endorsement of the United Auto Workers Union. And since then, since that endorsement, been an interesting war of words going on between UAW President Shawn Fain and former President Donald Trump. Very good to have Shawn Fain back with us again on Flashpoint. Shawn, I so appreciate the time.
Oh, thank you, Devin. Good to be here.
You bet. Before we get to what's ahead politically, let's go back to the endorsement. Some felt like it took a while for the UAW to make its decision. Given that since it happened, you've called Donald Trump a scab and he's called you a dope. I'm wondering, was it that tough of a decision for you to make, or was it an easy one?
It was an easy decision. I think, that was the point, I think, when I became president that we really pushed was, we wanted our endorsements to be earned, not freely given. And obviously, we went through our contract campaign and went through the Big Three negotiations. And, I'm glad that we waited to make endorsements and really look at things and, assess where our membership is and where things are. And going through all that, it gave us a really good picture, a very clear picture of between the two candidates that are, one of the two are going to be president, which one stands with labor and which one doesn't. And there couldn't be a more stark contrast between the two. You have President Biden, who, even going back to the recession in 2008, 2009, he was vice president then, but he stood with the American workers, stood with us, and they bet on the American worker, gave us a path forward. You look at Donald Trump back in that time was blaming the workers for everything that was wrong with the recession. And, you go fast forward to when Donald Trump was president in 19. GM was on strike for 40 days. He was non-existent, nowhere to be found. Didn't say anything about the strike or about the workers. Lordstown Assembly Plant was in Ohio was slated for closure. And Donald Trump told workers, don't sell your houses. And then he did nothing to help. And you fast forward to 2023 with Joe Biden as president. We had a 6-week strike, and he actually stood on the picket line with us. He stood up with us. And you look at Belvedere Assembly Plant in Illinois that was slated for closure at Stellantis, and the community was written off for dead. And we went in there and we worked hard, and we worked with the president and Secretary of Labor Sue and a lot of their team, and we were able to not just get Belvedere Assembly Plant back, but get a second plant to be built there and save the community. So the contrast couldn't be more clear to us between the body of work between the two. It's very clear to me. I mean, Joe Biden bet on the American worker. Donald Trump has a history of blaming the American worker. And like I tell people, I mean, whether it was his TV show, The Apprentice, or as president, his favorite word was "you're fired." And that's everything we're against. We stand for working class people, and And there's only one candidate in that equation that really stands with workers, and that's Joe Biden.
Well, it was clearly historically significant when Joe Biden was on the picket line with you. But you also know that Donald Trump does speak to a lot of people in blue-collar America. And I wonder how much in lockstep you think the entire membership of the UAW and the entire labor movement will be with you. We know that Donald Trump's been trying to court the Teamsters right now.
Well, I mean, there's always going to be people. I mean, even it could be party affiliation. There's a lot of reasons. But at the end of the day, Trump talks a good game. He likes to tell people what they want to hear, but actions speak louder than words. And his actions show who he really is. And who he really is a billionaire that looks out for the billionaire class and everything that working class people stand for, everything that working class people want, better wages, health care. Retirement security. I mean, those are all things that run contrary to what Donald Trump believes in philosophically. And so, you look at the Teamsters. I mean, obviously they are interviewing candidates, but I do believe in the end they'll endorse the proper candidate, the right candidate that stands for labor, and just like any union with a brain would do. And
I'm curious, is that something you and the Teamsters president Sean O'Brien will talk about?
No, he runs their union. He's going to, he's doing things the way he believes. I think that he wants to do it, and we're doing things the way we believe we're going to do it, and it may be different paths, but I think they'll lead to the same conclusion.
One of the other things
I just didn't see a need to entertain that because Donald Trump has never shown in one place where he stands with American workers.
Well, one place where I think some workers have applauded him has been his economic and trade war on China. I think that registers with some American workers. He's referred to you this past week as a weapon of mass destruction on auto workers because he feels that you've capitulated to the electric. How the EV became politicized is something for about a 4-hour conversation you and I can have one day. But his stand against China registers with some American workers, doesn't it? And feeling that you've given in to this EV world.
Again, that's words. That's Donald Trump talking, doing what he does best, but it's not what he believes. Donald Trump and his family do business with China. They profit from doing business in China. So he can say that on one end, but the reality and his actions say a different thing. And when it comes to the EV battery industry, that's where the world is headed. Europeans are going there. Sales went up from 5% to 7.5% over the last year. They're going to keep increasing. And we can't stick our head in the sand and pretend it's not coming. We have to embrace it. We have to get in front of it. And the fight we took on was we wanted to put it under a good standard of living, put it under our standards, under union standards, to where it's not driving a race to the bottom. Donald Trump stands for driving things in a race to the bottom. That's why he does business in China.
It's hard to imagine a path for Joe Biden to win re-election without Michigan. You've seen the poll numbers. You know that right now he's struggling in this very important state. What do you think is the story there?
Well, I think a couple things. I think obviously the situation in Gaza it's a very bad situation. We've came out. We stand for peace, and we want to see a ceasefire. But in the end, and then the other part of this is, again, Donald Trump talks a good game, but his actions don't show the same thing. And so I believe we have to put out the facts. That's in our strike with Big Three. That's what worked for us. That's why 75% of Americans during that strike sided with us in that fight, because the issues we're talking about are the issues that speak to American people. And those are the issues Joe Biden cares about. Working class issues, better wages, health care for all, retirement security, getting our time back, getting our lives back, not having to work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, or work multiple jobs just to scrape to get by. That's the economy Donald Trump, the billionaire class pushes. They want a system of slavery where people are working for scraps so the billionaire class can take all the money. That's the system that Donald Trump pushes. So I believe when people look at facts, and look at these two candidates in their own actions, not just their words, in their actions and what they've done, it's very clear which one's the better candidate, and that's Joe Biden. And I think Michigan will vote overwhelmingly. for Joe Biden.
We got a long way to go, obviously, but it still seems to be an election that most Americans don't love their choices. I want to move away from politics for a second and let you, I haven't talked to you very much since the contract was completed. I'm curious about sort of your Monday morning recap now as you look back at the things that have happened since the contract was approved. We've seen issues with, particularly with Stellantis and temporary workers. We've seen plant shifts regarding EVs. Give me your view of the landscape today, months after the contract.
Look, by far it's the richest agreement in our history.
Absolutely.
We didn't get everything we wanted as in any contract, but we definitely achieved a hell of a lot more than people ever thought we would. Some of the situations going on with some of the product shift or with some of the layoffs and some of the situations with supplemental employees, the temporary workers, those are choices the companies are making. And it all goes back to the same thing, just as we talk about the situation in China, and weapons of mass destruction. Corporate greed is a weapon of mass destruction that's been, employed upon the working class people the last 40 years. And corporate greed is what's driving those decisions at Stellantis and some of these other companies when they look at shifting these things. And we're going to fight that every step of the way. We have a contract, and we're going to operate within the means of that contract. But we expect the company to take care of our members, and we're going to fight every step of the way for them. So I'm very proud of the work we've done. But we got a lot of work ahead of us. We're just getting started. I'm really proud. I don't know if you've seen, but yesterday we announced that Hyundai in Alabama hit 30% of people signed cards to organize.
Right.
We're approaching 50% in Mercedes and Volkswagen. And, thousands of workers in the non-union sector are reaching out, and they want a better life. They want better for themselves, and they realize that the union is a way to make that happen, because if you don't have a union, you're an employee at will, and you have no rights. The boss has all the power and makes all the decisions. And the only thing that gives you a sample of that power and lets you take some of your life back is by having a union that gives you a voice. So I think a lot of workers all over the country are realizing that now, and I think we're going to see a lot of growth in organized labor in UAW.
UAW now standing for You Are Welcome, maybe starting to register with some. Shawn Fain, it's always good to have you on the program. I look forward to talking to you again very soon.
Thank you, Devin. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Shawn Fain, president of the UAW. We'll continue with more. This is Flashpoint on Local Forum. Welcome back. As I mentioned, while President Biden was shaking hands with the UAW, protesters were outside demonstrating against his policies in Israel. And a group of Arab American activists is calling on voters to abandon Biden, leaving many to wonder how damaging that would be in his hopes in Michigan. Let's talk about it with political strategist Dennis Darnoy of Densar Consulting. Deputy editorial page editor of the Detroit News is back with us, Caitlin Buss. Democratic Congresswoman from District 6 in Michigan, Debbie Dingell, and the publisher of the Arab American News, Osama Sablani. Osama, I guess I'll start with you. This is a really interesting moment. I think a lot of people watch Arab Americans protesting President Biden thinking, well, where are you going to go? You're certainly not going to feel more kinship with Donald Trump, or are they? What is the point?
Well, initially in 2020, when we supported Biden, I endorsed him in the Arab American News,
right.
Arab American Political Action Committee also endorsed him. The community voted for him about 70%.
Yeah.
It was a vote against Trump. Well, it turned out that Biden is not better than Trump in the community. Not only on the Gaza, but the Gaza issue is a major issue right now.
Sure.
But there are other issues too, But let's talk about Gaza. When you go in a wartime, go to the country that at war, as a president of the United States, embrace someone and tell him, here's the money, here's the weapons, here's the ammunition, go and kill. You become a partner in crime. And that's what Joe Biden is.
The question, though, becomes
equal to Netanyahu, in our views, in our eyes. That's what it is.
But what happens? What's the guidance here? To vote for Donald Trump or to just stay home?
Well, it's not my problem.
No, I know you're not part of this abandoned Biden movement.
Yes. No, I am. Yes,
You are.
I started it. I started the second day, I think in October 9. So, yes, I am for the abandoned.
Debbie Dingell is even looking at you with great interest right now.
I know Debbie may be surprised, but Debbie knows that I am, as a publisher of a newspaper, I need to communicate. I believe in communication. That's my job.
Well, then back to my original question. Are you saying vote for Donald Trump or stay home?
No, not staying home. We're not staying home. There is another option. There is a third option.
Which is?
Uncommitted.
Uncommitted.
Are you talking for
Congresswoman,
the
go ahead.
primary or the general election?
Talking for the well, it's too early for the general election. We're not going to make decisions right now in general election. But as it stands today, if the election was today, this is what we're going to do.
Congresswoman, in fact, Dennis and I were talking earlier, it is so hard to see a path for Joe Biden without Michigan. What does this cost him?
Look, I'm in point blank. Michigan's where it's at. We're ground zero, and quite frankly, whatever way Michigan goes, I think will determine what happens to the presidency. I think Michigan is very competitive, which nobody believed me in when Donald Trump first got elected. I think some people may roll their eyes and not want to believe me. And I think there are a number of issues, but I think we've got to see what the next few weeks bring. I think there's been a lot of diplomacy, and that the president has not really understood how deep the feelings are, and that people don't know what he's doing. I don't know what he's doing, but what is happening in this community, the fact that so many people have family and friends that have been killed, that have no food, that have no water, and look, what Hamas did was a terrorist act. I'm not defending that, but a Jewish baby and a Palestinian baby are children. It's got to be dealt with. He's not going to be able to talk to this community until there's a ceasefire, and then they're going to remind people about how he's called the community vermin and poison in the blood, and they want to ban them, et cetera. But those discussions can't happen right now.
Kelly, give me your thoughts. If somebody is looking for a candidate who supports the Palestinian cause, I'm not sure I see who that is. It's not Nikki Haley either.
No. No, and I think, that is obviously a huge issue right now. And I think what's going on in the Democrat Party might be worse than the Republican Party at this point, and what we're hearing in some of those lines being crossed. But I think the warning signs for this were deeper. I mean, we had Arab Americans in Dearborn being frustrated with the book bans, or wanting book bans, I should say. There's been rumblings, they're very small business oriented, entrepreneurial. There's a mismatch between just saying we want someone who's going to do the right policy in X, Y, and Z, and between saying we want someone who represents us, on a variety of issues. And Biden is coming up against that problem with the black community, too. So I don't think it's issue by issue. I think it's who is listening to us and who's going to represent us.
Yeah, but I'm sorry to interrupt, but there's one thing about the book ban. Arab Americans were not for the.
No, correct. I meant actually against.
In 2022, we gave also the Democrat 70% of our votes. Mm-hmm. Some of them took 68, some of them 65, but most of them got 70%. Mm-hmm. So the book ban was not an issue in our community. It was an issue in the media. The Republicans tried to grab it and do something with it.
Let me let Dennis jump in here and reset the stage for me. You were talking about, I think that what's keeping you up at night is trying to figure out how this doesn't all boil down to Michigan.
Exactly. I agree 100% with Congresswoman Dingell. This is going to be ground zero. As we've talked about, there are probably 6 states in play when you look at Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Georgia's kind of going home red. Pennsylvania's kind of going home blue. If you look at Arizona trending red and Wisconsin trending blue, that means it comes down to Michigan and Nevada. And Nevada's electoral college votes is not enough to pick the next one. It's 6 to our 15. So if that scenario holds true, that means Michigan determines the next president. And if you're sitting here watching this panel and you are a supporter of Donald Trump, you're smiling, because uncommitted is not a vote for Joe Biden. And what we saw in 2016 was the fact that 96% of Michigan voters chose a two-party candidate. 3-4% chose a third-party candidate. Donald Trump won. Yeah. In 2020, 98% chose between the 2 major party candidates. So it's shaping up as another 2016, which, if you're in the Trump camp, is what you want to hear.
Osama, it does feel like uncommitted is a vote. Hillary Clinton can tell you that people who don't get out.
It is a vote.
It is a vote.
It is a vote. But this is not our problem. It's the problem in America. We have two choices in here. We don't have a third choice. So the third choice is not to vote for any of them. I mean, I'm not going to advocate voting for Donald Trump, but at the same time, I cannot tell my community vote for Joe Biden after what he has done. Not only in Gaza, but in other areas too. But he can fix things if he wants to. I mean, I said it before that he had to do better than Jesus, bringing more dead alive. But he can do something right now. Ceasefire, permanent ceasefire, and help people recover from the disaster that he helped make. You know, these people put in. I was looking the other day at some of the kids sleeping in a tent in Gaza in the mud. That is not a very good view. And also, you know, still people under the rubble. Thousands.
Congresswoman, how does Joe Biden make his case then?
We have to see what happens the next.
He has to listen to Debbie. That's the problem. The problem is he's not listening to the right people. If he listens to Debbie Dingell and if he listens to the governor, we probably can get somewhere. But he is not listening.
I think he is. I think he heard private confidential conversations. I think that there is diplomatic work going on that needs to be far more public. I think people need to be I think the bulk of the American people think Israel has a right to exist, but are horrified at what is happening in Gaza.
Well, majority of Americans are shifting their opinion right now against Israel and against Biden too. There are polls, Dennis will tell us, there are polls shows that the young people are not on the same page with Biden right now.
Well, they're horrified by what's happening, and innocent people are dying.
Beyond Michigan, Caitlin, what does the Israel-Hamas odyssey do to the American election this year?
Yeah, I think it's probably worth, I think a lot of voters are probably thinking, would we be in this position had Trump been elected, or how would that have been different? I mean, if there's no opening for a third party in this election, I don't know when it'll ever happen. And, I still don't know that they could ultimately get past that goal line. I mean, the party establishments are just so strong, but in a lot of ways, they're reaping what they've sowed for the past years. And so, I think No Labels has a good chance. I think Robert F. Kennedy has a good chance.
That's the other thing. We have no idea what Kennedy is up to, but he would tilt probably enough votes for Donald Trump to win, tilt enough votes away from Joe Biden, right?
The last time a third-party candidate won electoral college votes was 1968, George Wallace. So the third-party candidate is going to be a spoiler. That's all they're going to do. I mean, and you look at, whether it was Ross Perot, he couldn't even get an electoral college vote. So again, it's really a two-person race. Choose your candidate, and that person will win.
Fascinating conversation, friends. Thank you all so much for being here. Back with more in just a minute. This is Flashpoint on Local 4. All right, fascinating morning here. My thanks to all of my guests, but mostly my thanks to you. Always great to have you a part of the Flashpoint family. Hope you have a great week. Meet the Press coming up next here on Local 4. We'll see you next time right back here for Flashpoint.